Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Twisters. As Chubby Checker famously sang, "Come on, baby, let's do the twist." What's up, geeks? This is the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Kev, and today we are touching down with an F5-sized discussion about a whole new group of good-looking geniuses with a death wish as we take a look at one of the biggest movies of the summer, Twisters. A huge thanks to our friends at Universal Studios Canada for sounding the alarm and letting us know about this one early so we could warn you about the impending storm. Will the sequel wrangle the wit, charm, and adrenaline of the 90s classic, or will it take you to the suck zone? Find out here. But first, if we're just showing up on your Doppler radar and you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, chasing tornadoes, be it for scientific research or to make awesome first-person perspective YouTube videos, requires teamwork. And so, too, does putting on a podcast. So let's hop in our rugged pickup truck, pack the rockets, and slap on our harnesses as I introduce the team. They don't have PhDs from Harvard and haven't spent years chasing big storms, but when it comes to movies, they're the smartest people I know. Nate, Darcy, are we ready to ride our fears?
Yay, yay! Yo, we got cows, Kevin. We got cows.
I will say I was a little disappointed we didn't get an homage to a flying cow in this one. Not that we won't say too much because, again, this is spoiler free. But I do think it's a little fitting that today in our neck of the woods here in Toronto, Canada, we just had one hell of a storm. We didn't get tornadoes. We often don't. We usually don't. And when we do, they're usually very small in scale. But we had the biggest rainstorm we've had here in a very long time. I don't know if you saw, guys. We saw the movie last night at Scotiabank Theatre in Toronto, and they had to close down the theater, cancel advanced IMAX screenings for the show tonight, and like the roof and windows were leaking where we picked up our tickets last night. Like, we dodged the storm by a hair.
Well, even crazier, we noticed yesterday on the way down to the movie, wow, that Don River is really, really high. The water is really up there.
We did sort of say
the
we
Don
got the
Valley
omens.
flooded.
Yeah.
The Don Valley Parkway flooded today and had to be closed down. That's how much rain we got today. So
the Twisters marketing team
they really stepped it
they're
up.
doing too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too much, I think.
Like when your marketing is preventing people from seeing the movie, you've gone too far.
Maybe scale it back a little bit. Maybe an F1. Maybe go to F1.
I mean, I do applaud them, and it's fitting for the movie that is bigger and bolder and louder and crazier than the original, which, of course, we will talk about. But, boys, I hate to cut us off here, but the weather is shifting. I see a large, dark cloud formation to the northeast. The shear is shifting from the west, and a cold air funnel is rising. If the hail starts falling, it's already too late. We've got a Twister to wrangle. Twister stars Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, Anthony Ramos, Maura Tierney, Brandon Pera, Daryl McCormack, Sasha Lane, Kiernan Shipka, and Nick Dodani. From the Academy Award-nominated writer-director of Minari, Lee Isaac Chung, based on a screenplay by Mark L. Smith. This summer, the epic studio disaster movie returns with an adrenaline-pumping, seat-gripping, big-screen thrill ride that puts you in direct contact with one of nature's most wondrous and destructive forces. Kate Cooper, a former storm chaser haunted by a devastating encounter with a tornado during her college years, is lured back to the open plains to test a groundbreaking new tracking system. There, she crosses paths with Tyler Owens, the charming and reckless social media superstar who thrives on posting his storm-chasing adventures with his raucous crew. As storm season intensifies, terrifying phenomena never seen before are unleashed, and Kate, Tyler, and their competing teams find themselves squarely in the paths of multiple storm systems converging over central Oklahoma in the fight of their lives. Twisters storms into theaters on July 19th, and I think we should just get going right away. We've got no time to waste. Let's start with our thoughts on what worked with this sequel, rebootquel to
Rebootquel?
Twister.
Yeah, going into this one, I had a day's worth of nostalgia. So, which is to say, I never watched the original.
I believe we
growing
coined
up.
it nostalgia.
Nostalgia. I had some nostalgia going into this one, which I thought it would benefit me. I thought it would keep me clear from the is this going to live up to my memories I had as a kid watching Twister? Right? Sometimes we fall into that of it's not as good as the original, so on and so forth with adaptations or reboots or rebootquels. But as a kid growing up in the '90s in Beaverton, Ontario, shout out to Beaverton, we had a massive field behind my house. Whenever it would get really stormy, after seeing the Twisters trailer, I'm like, this is it. This is going to be it for us. This is my family. We're done. We're going to get completely blown away. We're going to see cows flying through the air. So as a kid growing up in the '90s, I stayed away from this movie as much as I possibly could, but I couldn't avoid the trailer. So I was excited to see if this one would be an improvement over the original. And I have to say, Lee Isaac Chung has come in here after Minari, which is also a phenomenal film. But
In
come in here
different way.
and such a different in a very different way, but still kind of sticking to the themes of the South. But I think this movie reminded me so much, oddly enough, of how we've gotten great video game sequels in the past, in that it builds so much off of the original in practically every single way. And I think for the better, which is awesome.
Well, so I almost should have asked this right off the bat, sort of our familiarity with the original Twister from 1995, I believe it is. So I was kind of at that like perfect age. This was like the coolest movie of the summer. The trailer, like you mentioned, it was incredible, terrifying, made everyone want to see it. It was a smash hit. The critics didn't love it at the time, but I think it's certainly become just one of those iconic staple 90s movies. But like growing up for me, it was like, that was a VHS that got worn down at sleepovers, lazy, rainy afternoons. I had friends with that iconic poster on their bedroom walls. It was just so much a part of my crowd and my age group growing up. Now, Darcy, you're very much like Nate in that you hadn't seen the movie until just before we went to see Twisters. So I'll ask you both, starting with you, Darcy. Does that original movie hold up? Like, you don't have that nostalgia that somebody from the 90s who saw it and loved it and grew up with it would have. But seeing it for the first time, did it hold up?
I mean, again, my familiarity up until like that day before was the whole you had a Twister in a jar promo thing from the movie, the original run or whatever, and I remember playing with that in your room, and that was the extent of my Twister knowledge, basically. But after watching it, I got to say it does hold up. It's one of like while it is very much of its time, just the way that they show technology specifically and how far we've come in the last 30 years is kind of wild. But there's that 90s adventure movie aspect to it. Like it's an Amblin film through and through, and it's just a feel good adventure flick. I love it. I mean, it holds up, and I was really stoked to go into this new movie. And it again, like Nate said, it ups the game in every way, shape, and form for the better. So yeah, I really love this one.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the original Twister movie, there's an impact that it had, right? And for it to be so impactful, especially Kevin, for yourself and for moviegoers at the time, like it is the summer blockbuster movie. Like that's like one of the few that I think you could look at as just being the iconic summer blockbuster. And if you were to watch any parroting material or animated cartoons that show 1995 or 1996 like movie theaters, it's like Twister is in theaters at that time. But I think the coolest thing with this one is how, like we're saying, like the overall story structure repeats. There are character arcs that follow the first film, and we even were calling it out as we were sort of leaving the theater, like, okay, so that's this person's like Joe and this person's like Dusty, and Justin was saying like there's like 6 Dustys in this movie. And I think for that movie to give us, even just recently seeing it, not I think the problem with that movie is that the cast was too big, and but the characters that stuck, and we were able to see that repeated, and they did it better in this one, even to the point where there's major set pieces that emulate the first film. You sub out a drive-in for a rodeo, let's say, right? And normally that could be disastrous for a movie to constantly remind your audience who grew up with Twister, too much of the original. But here, not only did it feel like it was paying homage, and again, I didn't feel that as much coming in with nostalgia, but it felt like it was stepping up. Like I got I'm a Star Wars kid. I got Force Awakens vibes from it, but at the same time, it goes a step further in that it actually exceeds almost all of those original moments. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with where it came out.
And I think, again, not being a big horror fan, but being a fan of the thriller genre, that first movie where it was lacking was the destructive nature or the devastation that tornadoes can cause just to people and stuff like that. And I gotta say, that's the one area in this movie that really amped it up, where the destructive nature of these phenomena that happen regularly in the South, it's really brought to the front, and it's done so well. That's, I think, why it stands. Everything feels so much elevated, is because they've taken the Twisters and brought them to a more realistic standpoint, and now everything is just coming off of that, and it works so well.
Yeah, I think, it is kind of crazy to say, oh, they took this classic 90s movie and made it better in every way. And so for me, coming in with just that such familiarity with the movie, and having seen it probably 20 times growing up, and then rewatching it again just before we went, I think it was such a risky endeavor for them to have taken so many notes from that original, but it pays off so well. And probably particularly where you said, Darcy, we even joked, they can't call this Twisters because we saw two in the first one. They already did that. What could they possibly do here? But no, I think, yeah, everything just feels bigger. It feels scarier. It feels more threatening. And I think they show that force and that devastation throughout the movie in a bit more impactful way in this one, where you are literally fearing for any of the characters' lives. They make everyone feel at risk, and that's such an important thing to do in this kind of thriller action genre. And so many times you're like, well, they're not going to die, and they're not going to die. But in this one, I honestly felt that anybody could go at any time, and that was such a powerful tool to keep you going through the whole movie.
Yeah, the stakes feel so much bigger and so much more real, and they aren't afraid to do the thing. They're not afraid to actually kill characters off. And I think looking back at that first movie, sure, we have some deaths in that movie, but one was, spoilers for Twister 1. One was to set up Joe's arc and her character, and then the other two was that poor driver that got impaled. Like, that poor guy, like, he did not deserve that.
He wanted to go back.
Yeah. And then we have Carrie Elway's character, right? And I guess he's kind of the villain, so whatever. But I just sort of, this one, it hits, and it gives you like just some really eerie feelings as well from these storms. And I think that's another area that I want to kind of commend Lee Isaac Chung for, in terms of the ability for this movie to shift between tone. I thought was really, really well done. I found that there was a pretty good fluid movement between action, a little bit of comedy here and there. I still think this movie, with the omission of actual Dusty, not being in this film, nothing can really, compare to Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just, losers, like food, like all that stuff. Here we get a little bit of comedy, but I think where I want to really commend Lee Isaac Chung is for the romance. Like, I was not expecting to go into this movie and be like, yeah, romantic comedy. Like, we get to a moment in this movie where I was like, are we watching like a different, like a spin-off or something, like where we've just gone into full rom-com, and it felt like a really strange first date, but I was there for it, and I really enjoyed the boost in the chemistry that it gives to our main characters.
Well, and speaking of our main characters, I think the reason it was so easy to ship this romance and to get on board is because of the charisma, especially coming from Glenn Powell. I think he is just. I've known it for 10 years. Okay, I will die on this horse that I was like one of the first ones out there saying, "Make this man a movie star."
You like Glenn Howell before he was big.
When I saw him in Scream Queens, when I saw him in Everybody Wants Some, I was just like, man, I could watch this guy lead any movie, doing anything. He's incredible. I honestly think he is like the next Robert Redford, the next Brad Pitt, the next Tom Cruise. I think he's got acting chops and oozes charisma. I just honestly think, and I hope that enough people go see this movie. Whether it is, hey, ladies and gentlemen, he wears a very tight white T-shirt and pulls it off quite successfully.
When we got to that moment, Justin even went, "Ooh," and the woman beside him could not hold it in. She was like, oh, she was loving it. Yeah.
But no, I honestly think this is a star-making role for him. I honestly, because he's had a great year. He's dating back to Top Gun. Sharing the screen and stealing scenes from somebody like Tom Cruise is a gift. Hitman, no, Fall Guy, no,
Hitman.
It is Hitman.
Yeah,
terrific.
Hitman,
yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
He's so good in that movie, and here it's just that like action movie star turn. He's just awesome.
Yeah, I think he's so incredibly douchey, but somehow so charming that you're like instantly ready to forgive him, which is not easy to pull off. I think they did such a good job. He fits the persona of this social media star YouTuber so well, and I think he eats up the screen whenever he's on screen. He just eats it up, and he just has so much fun with it. And the moment his character comes on screen, you can't help but just have a giant smile on your face. You're giggling, you're laughing. And I think it's cool because, his crew, it's kind of like this parallel from the first film, right? Where there's a moment in the first film where Bill sees Jonas for the first time. We kind of, again, we're getting all those moments from the first film in this one. But when he pulls up, it's cool to sort of see these roles are reversed. And yeah, I really, really dug Glenn Powell in this movie. How could you not?
Mm-hmm. He was fantastic.
Well, and then even just speaking of the whole cast, and I think, you brought up Dusty and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and while he does have some classic 90s style humor lines, we also talked about how cringy and red flaggy that character is in his treatment of the female characters. And I think what this movie does in a really interesting way is they give you these characters who at first glance you might stereotype them, and you might think, oh, well, this is this person and this person's going to be like this. And they kind of flip those expectations as you get to know the characters. And I really thought that was a neat development of the side characters throughout the movie.
One of the great things about like when the trailer does is you think Tyler Owen's team will be the bad guys, and very clear lines are drawn, very much like a 90s film where there is someone you're supposed to hate. But over the course of this movie, you get character growth from almost everyone involved in the cast, and it is done so well, like you said, Kevin, where you're rooting for these people who at first glance you're like, well, these are the guys I'm supposed to hate. And again, just the way they pull off that shift and flip is just so well done.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you there. And I think from the trailer, I want to also highlight Anthony Ramos, because as Javi, he's such an interesting character because like he does a solid job in the movie as well. But when watching the trailer, I was like, okay, cool. The guy's going to be passable comedic relief. Like they really subverted my expectations on the character from first glance. And I think that and also what you described, Kevin, of sort of being in that mentality of like, as an audience, seeing these characters one way at first and then growing to know them a different way, very much mirrors what Kate goes through. And I think Daisy Edgar-Jones is really great in this film as the vessel for the audience, but at the same time, she's also the smartest character in the movie. You get to see her flex her skills over and over again, but then you also get to see her flaws. And like I was saying, you get to see those preconceived feelings that she has and how they don't always work out for her. And I think that's really cool because it sort of mirrors, like there's a lot of moments throughout the film, and even in the first film, where they would make a call on a tornado and it wouldn't be the right call. And it's just kind of bringing that back to the human side of things, where now we can sort of see how that's not just related to predicting and forecasting the weather, but predicting and forecasting how people are going to act around you based off your first, example of them. And I think she did a great job. I love seeing her face her fears. I love seeing her, go through that anxiety, but at the same time, like, yeah, don't face your fears, ride them, is kind of the idea. And it means not just facing your fears, but rising above them and doing something about them. And I think she gave a really solid performance. And I think it made her arc in the film feel really believable, but also fun to follow because I felt like we were right there along with her.
Absolutely. She really is sort of the grounding force. She's almost serving to remind us of the devastating nature of what we're dealing with here. It's not all fun and games, Tyler. It's not just about going out there and hooting and hollering. There are lives at stake, and that's what ultimately everyone is here to do, is to try and save as many people as they can in their own way, and sort of, them coming from different worlds and sort of coming together to sort of find a way through the situation was always a very intriguing part of the movie, beyond just the destruction and the spectacle of the tornadoes itself. They always found a way to ground it on the human side, and she does such a wonderful job of that. Now, the movie has a lot of humor. It's really, really fun. But one of the funniest things in the movie came from a very personal inside joke that we had, because we were joking about it all the way down. Now, Nate, you always like to talk about the music in movies.
Yeah,
and you had some very interesting things to say about the original Twister in terms of its music. How did you feel watching this movie?
So the music in Twisters is significantly better than the music in Twister. My complaints with Mark Mancina's score in the original film, it's just and maybe this is because I'm watching the movie from a modern lens, right? I remember Justin was kind of like being like, but that's the beauty of an Amblin movie. And I felt like Mark Mancina heard it was an Amblin film, thought, okay, it's going to be a bunch of little kids chasing tornadoes, and then just went, and like, you've got these massive, horrible tornadoes in front of these characters. And I get it, it's an adventure, but Mark Mancina was giving, like, no, we've got John Williams at home vibes. And I think here Benjamin Wallfish gives us a score that fits the tone when it needs to. It adapts to the moment. There's one moment where you're absolutely right. Justin and all of you were hooting and hollering and fist pumping when no one else in the audience was, simply because Ben gave us a little Amblin adventure vibe moment, but it quickly diverts and changes into, mixing in fiddles and acoustic guitar to give us that Oklahoma country feel. I think it's so fitting, because I think it just does such a good job at, we get a mix of country pop songs, but then also the actual score. All of it does such a great job to get you excited when you need to, or mellow you out when you need to, or give you those romantic vibes and feels when you need to. And I think Benjamin Wallfish did a much better job, and I will die in that tornado.
Absolutely. No, I thought the blending of different genres to fit the mood and stuff probably did it did a better job of grounding you into the moment and really immersing you into what was going on for these characters. So definite thumbs up there.
For sure. And I wanted to, just when we're talking about audio and sound, I want to throw it over to Darcy really quickly, because, we were talking about earlier how in the original film, the tornadoes would growl or hiss like snakes. What did you think about, obviously, the storms? I mean, I think the VFX is a place where that's too obvious. Of course, it's going to be better. We're 28 years removed from the original, but the audio, what did you think of that when it came to storm chasing?
Even the audio has come leaps and bounds. Foley work now is incredible. The lengths they'll go to capture realistic sounds in this movie. While I was looking forward to at least one tornado growling at me, what we got was so realistic that as soon as the AC kicked on, we all were joking how it's like, oh god, it feels like we're actually in a tornado now. That extra little breeze with that wind that you hear whipping by you in the theater,
and it was much needed because it was hot in that
it was a very hot theater. So
yeah,
but it was the sound again from the tornadoes not growling again just adds to that layer of these are something to be afraid of, not something to laugh at. And they again, it mixing was so well done for that movie.
It's funny how I forgot that element of the first one until I watched it a couple days ago. and they say that a tornado actually sounds more like a jet engine, just roaring to life rather than like. It's almost like they just got lion sounds from the zoo and threw it
Yeah.
in with some gusts of wind, and it was a little silly by the third or fourth time they did it. So yeah, I think keeping it fun, but grounding it in a little bit more realism and practicality really does help, again, with the dramatic moments of this intense action going on. Like that's just another way that they took what worked in the first and said, but if we tweaked it just a little, it could be that much more effective. Now, obviously, tornadoes, as Tyler learns, aren't all fun and games. There are some downsides to it. There are some negative, very real negative elements that need to be dealt with. And so with the movie itself, was there anything that didn't quite connect, be it didn't live up to the first one, or just as a standalone movie itself that didn't quite work for you?
Yeah, we're entering the suck zone. Is that what we'll call this part of the review, right?
It might be, that might be a little harsh. I have a feeling nothing
actually,
really got to the suck zone.
You're right. I don't think it ever
Yeah,
got, unless
yeah.
you're looking at like a good kind of suck. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Well, they like the
but,
suck zone in this movie. That's the place you want to be. Again.
Yes, exactly. I think as I mentioned earlier, like the movie exceeds the original in almost every way. I do think the movie still suffers a bit from having such a large group of characters to follow, where I think a lot of those characters do get pushed into the background. And I think in this one, we get a few more moments to show them off, which is great. It's absolutely awesome. But it never gets to the place where I think if they just had a slightly smaller grouping of people, I think they could have gotten to a more memorable team base. Like I think of the team that we all think of Guardians of the Galaxy, right? That team energy, the group of people that come together, that by the end of the movie, you're like, they are a family, and they managed to do that in one film, especially for people that didn't come off of reading the comic books, like myself, coming out of that movie. I'm like, that's a team of people. And so in my head, I wasn't expecting to get exactly that, but I was hoping for maybe something a little bit closer. I didn't fully look into how many people were going to be in this cast. And so I think this movie does a slightly better job, but not to the degree of something like Guardians of the Galaxy, to the point where I really only remember, as far as the additional characters go, Boone, who's played by Brandon Perea, and he's kind of like Tyler's ride or die hype man, cameraman. And then I want to shout out Ben, played by Harry Patton, or Harry Patton, as he'd probably say, who was a huge improvement over, and I can't remember her name, but like the new wife character as sort of the tag-along in this film. We get some really enjoyable moments. I think some of the biggest comedic pops come from his character, and it was so welcomed. But yeah, I think that was one thing that didn't really work for me. And then if I'm going to be really nitpicky about it, I will also just say the dialogue didn't always work for me. And this is true from the first one. So this is where I don't think it improves. I think it just sort of stays the same, which is where you have a bunch of characters, and listen, I completely understand. They probably have it backed by some science and people that are
exactly the scene
really
you're
into it,
about.
right? I'm sure there are people that were really into the storms and stuff like that understand what they're saying. But there were so many moments in this movie where my mind just goes, okay, I'm checked out. Turn my brain off, which is fine. It's a summer action blockbuster. But I did feel disconnected quite a few times throughout the movie, where characters would just go into dialogue about, yeah, okay, it's a third strike, force winds are picking up, and it's just like, I don't. If it, all I'm hearing is, we go here to do story this, story that, and that didn't work for me a lot of the time throughout the movie, and so it kind of brought me out of it quite a few times.
It did very much feel like at certain points in the film, they were like, okay, we need to explain to the audience the science behind either how a tornado works or how this machine works or why we're implementing this machine, where and how we're doing it. And it did come off very much just like forced dialogue. It wasn't natural. It was like, here's a time for another dump, here's time for another dump. Like, just, it did sort of break the natural fun and chemistry that these characters otherwise had. That's where they lost me. And I'm just like, it's a big twisty gust of wind. That's all I need to know. Like, leave it at that. It's scary as it is. You almost take a little bit of the the scary element away from it when you over explain and overanalyze and take the time to do that. So that would be my one little nitpick about the film.
Yeah, they still need to show that the characters are smart and professional and know what they're talking about, but it felt like it went really too far at times.
I didn't mind it that much, and I think a lot of that
Because you
boils
understood it,
down-
because you're smart. We're dumb.
Hey,
No,
now.
I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell pull it off so well, where it's very believable that they are the smartest person in the room. Again, my biggest gripe with this film was revealed in the trailer with on Tyler's truck there, those augers.
Oh, yeah.
As
Here we
someone
go.
who works with augers daily, I know how much force they have to grip in the ground, and the augers on that truck would not withstand these high gusts of wind in the middle of a tornado. So that is really my biggest gripe with this film is the misrepresentation of augers and the strength they have, because it is non-existent.
Justice for augers. Leave your comments below. Hashtag justice for augers.
Darcy, I know you said that there's like no auger big enough on Earth that you could attach to a truck that would work in a scenario like that, but they could have made them a bit bigger.
Yes, they could
could
have.
Again, these were like
2
the-
feet long
like-
little augers. You could rip that out by hand. So that's all I'm saying. Like,
but you know what? Those are very small little nitpicks that I don't think really detract from the movie too much. But the storm is letting up. We survived another one, boys. I think it's time to give our final thoughts and scores for this movie. And I think the scale we'll be using is pretty obvious for this one. We are going to be ranking this on a scale of F1 to F5. Darce, why don't you lead the way?
sure, but didn't they upgrade it to EF1 to EF5 now in this film? Like,
Well, you know
are we
what?
going-
They were doing too much exposition at once. I missed that classification. They didn't keep it simple enough for me. So I will correct myself. I will update. See, that's what we would rank Twister on, is a scale of
Yes.
F1 to F5.
Okay.
But for Twisters, we're going on a scale from EF1 to EF5. Now, Darcy, take it away.
Yeah, again, well, this movie it isn't perfect. There are some of the dialogue is a bit heavy-handed, and I will admit sometimes it is a bit too 90s at times, but a lot of it worked for me. I really recommend going out to check this movie out, especially if it's an IMAX. I can only imagine that being a totally surreal experience to sit inside one of these storms, essentially, with, again, the sound and the sights you're seeing in this film. But yeah, overall way better than the first movie. Again, they upped the ante in every regard, and I can only strongly recommend go see this film. So I'll be giving this one's a strong EF4 out of 5 for me.
Very nice. Nate, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think definitely go see this in IMAX. Go see this in 4DX. You can actually do that right now in Toronto. Just go
Maybe
to the
not
theater.
right now. Maybe
The
not.
No,
as
go
we
right. That'll be
speak.
the most realistic
Oh, there we go.
experience
I see what you're
you'll
saying.
ever
Sorry.
have. But no, I think this is a fun summer blockbuster action movie, and that's all it really needs to be. I think I actually came out of this pleasantly surprised. It was better than I anticipated, which is a joke that Kevin came up with, and I'm going to run with here. I think this movie takes what the original did and elevates it again in almost every way. The original movie will always be iconic for what it achieved, the lasting impact it had on audiences everywhere, and kids like me that were scared of every storm after seeing the trailer. It's the blockbuster. I don't think this movie, as a sequel or rebootquel, will have nearly the impact of that original. But for modern audiences, I think it does a great job of just taking that formula, improving on it. It's not The Force Awakens as a reboot, but it is, at least to me, going to be added to another list, a small list of films where the sequel is better than the first film, and that's that in the geek community, that is a really strong recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good thing to be the better film in a maybe a trilogy. Maybe we do get Twisters. This is coming up next. But I'm going to give this summer action blockbuster a very solid EF4. It's in the game. I don't know why. That's what I heard. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just sad because you stole my one joke that I had for my
Oh, dang.
score here. No, it's okay. It's okay. But you did say something in your thoughts there, one word in particular, and it was need. And did we need a sequel to the 30-year-old movie that is Twister? I'm not sure we did.
No.
And that was maybe my biggest fear going into this. It seems really late. It seems like such a long time to wait. And will there be any connection to the original film? And aside from a few visual cues, there really isn't anything from a character or story standpoint that does connect it to that first one. And that's almost one of the strengths that makes it work. It's its own film. And so it takes the spirit and the energy and everything that people loved about that original Twister and just brought it into the 21st century, brought it into our time now. And I think it just works in so many levels of improving everything that was so fun and wonderful about the original and making it work now. And there are so few movie-worthy get out, get to the theater, and see the movies. And this is one of them. They don't all have to just be the next Marvel movie. Plug for some reviews we have coming out next week, which I'll discuss in just a little bit. Like, this is the epitome. This is the definition of a summer blockbuster movie that deserves to be seen in a theater on the biggest, loudest screen you can find. And like you said, Nate, I don't think this is going to penetrate the cultural zeitgeist and be talked about in 30 years as fondly as the original movie is. But that doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile experience to go and have right now. And I think it works both for fans of the original. This is a worthy successor, even a superior one. And so you won't be disappointed if you hold that first film near and dear to your heart. But it also just works for anybody looking for a good time at the theater because you don't need to have that background and familiarity with the original. So this literally is a summer blockbuster for anybody looking to have 2 hours of fun and excitement in the theater. This is a worthy successor to the original in every single way, and I really, really enjoyed myself. And again, Glenn Powell is a fucking star. Go support this man so he can get the boost into the stratosphere that he deserves. Much like you, gentlemen, I am giving this a solid EF4 out of 5 for just being a damn good time. Well, that is it for this spoiler-free review of Twisters, which spins into theaters July 19th. Thanks again to our friends at Universal Studios Canada for giving us early access, and thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already, and if you don't, maybe we won't use our scientifically sophisticated warning systems to warn you about future theatrical disasters. We can't wait to hear your thoughts on this action and laugh-packed old-school summer blockbuster. As always, you can write into wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if that's a bit too much like seeing The Shining on a rundown drive-in screen, and you're more the type to watch the classic Frankenstein movie at a cool retro theater, you can hit us up on our socials. Nate, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's something you already just said, didn't you?
I got that one, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm all spun around here. I don't normally do this, just so you're aware, Kevin. You can check us out on Instagram at wearegeekcentric, or you can also reach us on I'm going to call it Twister, actually. You can reach us on twister.com, the app formerly known as, and you can reach us at Geekcentric YT. Wow. I need to do that more often.
Should I throw it to Darcy?
No,
and he
you got it. It's all good. We got
You know,
there.
I was really setting you up so you could talk about the Discord. I know you like to do that.
Oh, well, we do also have a Discord. Our link will be in the description. You can check out our Discord. You know what? We should open up a little conversation about Twisters. We'll talk about this movie once you've seen it and see if it blew you away.
Well, you could talk about Twisters or any of the other things we're talking about on Discord. But you know that when we're reviewing a movie like Twisters, that we absolutely have to be in the throes of another hot geek summer. As always, we have a ton of great content for you to check out, including our recent spoiler-filled discussion for The Bear Season 3, our spoiler-free review for the first 4 episodes of Season 2 of Hot D, House of the Dragon, as well as our spoiler-free reviews for The Boys Season 4, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Doctor Who, and Inside Out 2. Speaking of, we have some incredible interviews with some Canadian animators of Inside Out 2, the first big smash hit of the summer. You can check those interviews out, as well as so many more with the stars and creators of some of our favorite movies and TV shows over on your favorite podcast provider or over at youtube.com/geekcentric. We're also about to wrap our latest watch club for Disney Plus's Star Wars: The Acolyte. Is this the most tumultuous show in the history of the already often divided Star Wars franchise? I think it might be. We also have some awesome stuff coming your way for Deadpool and Wolverine, so stay tuned for that and so much more. The Hot Geek Summer rolls on, and we will see you next time. But until then, as we say on the Geekcentric podcast, if you feel it,
chase it.
I said, if you feel it,
Chase it.
Yeah, we don't actually say that very often, do we? But as we do actually say,
Yee! Love ya.
Laters.
Get home safe, guys. Peace.
It was Justin getting sucked away.
Yeah.